Hello, hello. So much for a quiet-ish morning. Anyway, hope you're all alright. I'm just in my car at the minute doing that thing where you arrive at home and then you're in a bit of inertia. So you're just waiting for your brain to catch up with your need to go back inside your own house. Spend many hours in my car just waiting for my brain to tell me it's okay to get out of my car and go in my house. Transitions are hard. Anyway. Hope you're all okay. I just wanted to, I've popped a link in the comments above. Now, this is a little bit of a different one because I usually, my core audience, the people I usually speak to, the people I support directly, the programs that I run are primarily for parents and families of children who can't be in school. I know that professionals access my content, and I have some amazing professionals in my circle who I work with and I consult with and who support my families. But it's not often that I directly address head teachers, local authorities, or governors of schools or academies. But this is for them. So if you know someone, or if you do fall into one of those categories, please give this a little bit of time and go and have a look at the link that I've posted above. So yesterday, the DfE have released a new consultation, and it's linked to the SEN white paper and the green paper around the proposed changes to the Education Act and the law around education. Specifically around attendance. A lot of the families that I support, their children have barriers to attendance. Many of them are in a situation, as we were, where they have a child or young person in their household who is not able to attend school because they're in mental health crisis, and that was our situation. Many of us struggle to get those attendances, those missed sessions in school authorised. Many of us face barriers to that because our, school's policy is that they won't take anything without a senior clinician's letter. A GP letter of support won't cut it. We're told that our absences are unauthorised, even though we know that it's not that our child won't attend, it's that they can't. The new proposals that are in consultation at the moment is a 6-week consultation period. Parents are not being asked to comment on this. Specifically, the consultation is for head teachers, governors of schools and local authorities, which is dangerous. Not because those people do not have an opinion, but because the voices of the people who are going to be most affected by these changes are not being heard as part of this consultation. So this is my plea to you, if you are a head teacher or a governor, or if you're a member of the local authority team, that you go and look at this consultation. And I'll tell you why specifically so many of us, particularly parents who have children with special educational needs, are so concerned about this. So one of the proposals is that there will be tighter restrictions and stronger legislation to take action against parents whose children are not in school. And the way that the consultation is worded is it speaks specifically to our legal requirement as parents that we have to ensure our children access education. Now, there's no argument from me here. However, the way the consultation is worded is it very much frames it around, and that should be in school. Many of us are not able to have our children educated in a school setting because our children cannot access that school setting, either because of unmet need or because of trauma or because of mental health issues. The new legislation is proposing that if a child misses 10 sessions, so that's a session is a morning or an afternoon, so that's like either a morning or an afternoon, or a full day would be 2 sessions. So there's 2 registrations in a day, a morning registration and an afternoon registration. If a child misses 5 days or 10 sessions in a term, then that would be standardised as the trigger for a prosecution or a fixed penalty notice to the parents. And this is when it's unauthorised absence. Now, here's the thing. Very often for families whose children have barriers to attendance, that will start with the odd day being missed here or there. If we have children who are masking their difficulties and who are trying to push through their challenges, they will sometimes manage to get into school and then the wheels will come off. So maybe if it's a particularly busy day, they might miss a morning session the following day. It does also include lateness, by the way, being not marked on time into school for a morning session is classed as an unauthorised absence. So, many of us have children who have difficulties with sleeping, or who have, mental health concerns or sensory issues that mean that, they can't get to school on time in the morning if they've had a particularly difficult day or a particularly difficult morning. That would be marked as an absent session, and often that would be marked as unauthorised absence, unless our schools update the way that they're going to record absences. So one of the consultations is that when 10 sessions have been missed in one term, that's only 5 days. So if you have a child who, say for example, there's an episode in school which triggers a trauma response in them, and they're not able to get into school for a week, let's say, for argument's sake, which is not that unusual for many of us who have children who have unmet special educational needs. And let's say that school refuse to record those absences as authorised absence, or because their policy says that they won't do that without a letter from a clinician. We're going to get fined. We're going to get threatened with prosecution. We're going to potentially face jail sentences. That is not going to help us. It's not going to help our children. So that's the first thing. I would really urge you that if you are able to consult on this document, that you take that into account before you feedback that consultation. None of us are saying that we don't agree that when there are cases where children are missing from education, that there should not be action taken. We are all in agreement. We would all love for our children to be able to access education in a way that is healthy and works for them, and in a place and an environment when they're ready and able to learn. None of us are saying that we don't believe that there should be any sanctions. What we are saying is that this new legislation potentially wipes out the power of school leaders to make decisions based on individual circumstances and to make reasonable adjustments for disabled children. Aside from that being completely unlawful, it's also immoral. And we're talking about some of the most vulnerable children in our school system. So that's the first thing. There's another thing as well, and I'm just trying to recall it to my brain. Okay, the second thing is this. I knew it would come back to me. The second thing is about being able to off-roll. So currently, if you have a child that's in school or on roll in a school, whether you have an EHCP or not, and let's say for argument's sake that your child is really unwell, maybe you have already been down the route, and this is very, very common experience for many families. Maybe you've already been down the route of trying to get your absences authorised. Maybe you are trying to, put things in place for your child. But in the meantime, things are not improving for your child, and you are, in crisis as a family. Now, some families will exercise their right to deregister in that situation. And that's something that, for many of us is an option and has to be an option when we just need a little bit of time out of the system, when we need some recovery time, when our children need some healing time, when we just need to put the brakes on for a little bit. The new consultation and the new suggestion is that will be made more difficult, particularly for families of children who have education healthcare plans. So whereas at the moment, if you have a child who is out of school, and say, for example, their absences aren't being authorised, and say, for example, you're at risk of involvement from education welfare, or you're being threatened with fines or even with prosecution, you could, if you wanted to, and if it felt right for you as a family, and this is all about autonomy for families, you could make a request to your local authority to remove your child from the register and to off-roll them and arrange education otherwise than at school yourself. So basically electively home educating. That is legally permissible. Our legal responsibility is to ensure that our children are accessing an education. There's nothing to say that they have to be in school, and many of us will exercise our right to deregister if we need to, because it's in our best interest and in the best interest of our children. Currently, you have to ask permission from your local authority. And if you don't have an EHCP, you can just deregister. You can just do that. But currently, if you have an EHCP, you can request from the local authority permission to deregister. And it's fairly straightforward. It's not often it's refused. individual circumstances might mean that sometimes it is, but usually a local authority will understand why you're making that decision, and they will usually allow you to do that because they can see it's in the best interest of you and your children and your family. And also, it's not a safeguarding issue. It's not a concern around well-being for your child if they're missing from education. Often there are other agencies involved. Often children who are missing from education are very visible with other services. So if there's no safeguarding concern, if your child isn't under a child protection plan, there isn't any reason why the local authority wouldn't give you permission to deregister if you have an EHCP. The new suggestion, and it's what's being consulted in this bill at the moment, is that that would no longer be possible. If you have an EHCP, the requirement would be that before you have your EHCP child allowed to be deregistered from a school, whether that's a mainstream or a specialist, that the local authority would have to review your EHCP. We know that reviews take time. I had a review in February. My plan has only just been finalised and I've pushed like mad. There are statutory timescales in place. They are also being suggested that they'll be extended, but there are statutory timescales in place, but they're not adhered to by local authorities. So you could be in a position, and I hate to be a scaremonger here, but I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just asking people to really, if you know anyone who works in a local authority or is a head teacher or is a governor, please send them this video and ask them to look at this consultation document. They've got 6 weeks to respond. We really need to pull together to make sure that our children and our young people are not fucked over by this bill. Thank you, it's a jumpsuit. So what would happen is that if you were in that situation where you needed to deregister your child for your own well-being or to avoid prosecution or just because you needed a bit of time off and a bit of frigging brain rest for you and your family because you're on your knees because this is one of the most stressful things you can ever go through as a family, and you have an EHCP and you request to deregister your child, the local authority would have to do a review before they've granted that request, and that would delay your deregistration by at least a month, by which time you'll be racking up more potential unauthorised absences and you would expose yourself to further danger or risk of prosecution and imprisonment. It's not okay. So, interestingly, they're not asking parents to consult on this. Funny that, I wonder why, because they probably know what we'd have to say about it. And it makes me so sad that it is the opinion of the lawmakers and the higher-ups that parents' voices should not be heard over this. There are other consultations and we are all working hard as a SEN community to push back and to make sure that our voices are heard. But this one is a call to arms for those professionals, and I know there are thousands of them, who know that when children can do well, they will do well. When children are not able to attend school, it's usually an indication that there's something going on beyond they just can't be effing bothered. And I say this as a parent of a child who was unable to attend school and who experienced significant mental health crisis. He experienced it. I experienced it as a knock-on effect. We had educational welfare involved. We were threatened with prosecution and fines, although it never came to it. But I know hundreds of families for whom that has been the story. I'm asking you, as someone who cares about the future of our children and young people and who cares about education and who values quality education that children can engage with, that you respond to this consultation and that you think about supporting some of the most vulnerable children and young families and young adults and families in our society. And that is children and families and young adults who are not able to attend school because they are in mental health crisis or because they have unmet special educational needs or because they're in trauma or because they're children who are in the care system or they're young carers or, any number of things, or they're disabled. Please, please, please consult on this paper. You have 6 weeks. So basically you have until the end of July. I know it's the end of term. I know it's crazy busy. Please make sure the voices of children and young adults and the families of those children and young adults who are doing their best to secure an education for our children, who want our children, when they are able to be, when it is in their best interest and when it's not damaging to them, to be in school, who value education, who understand that quality first teaching is an incredible resource that we have, and how fortunate we are to have such talented teachers and education professionals providing for our children. But please do not penalise them because they're not able to. Please share this video, and thank you for listening. I'll see you all later.